Okay, going live. You gotta love it. Gotta love live streams. You never know what's gonna happen. Okay, so I was told that the stream got knocked offline. I don't know what happened. Maybe, maybe it was never online. I don't know. Let's see here. Okay, going live. You gotta love it. Gotta love live streams. All right. I'm going to go ahead and say that we were never live, and I'm going to start over from the beginning. And from the beginning, I mean this. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Tabmock99. 2,000 years ago, a man-beast was born on a distant planet. They named him Goro. So today's video, we're going to be talking all about Goro. Now, to really start to get into Goro's story, we're going to have to take you all the way back to Mortal Kombat 1. Not the Mortal Kombat 1 that's going to be released later this year, but the one that first came out in arcades in 1992. Here's Goro's story from that game. Goro lives. The 2,000-year-old half-human dragon Goro remains undefeated for the past 500 years. He won the title of Grand Champion by defeating Kung Lao, a Shaolin fighting monk. It was during this period that the tournament fell into Shang Tsung's hands and was corrupted. And that's a very important part of the story. They actually go into that in the Mortal Kombat 1 comic book, which makes sense since John Tobias wrote the game and the comic together. So if you look in the comic, you'll see that Shang Tsung defeated Kung Lao 500 years ago. I'm sorry, Kung Lao defeated Shang Tsung. And then, after his defeat, he brought back Goro with him. So Goro defeated and killed Kung Lao. The tournament has been in the hands of Outworlders ever since. So you're probably wondering, so what happened next? What happened after the end of Mortal Kombat 1? What is the canon version of the games? So, according to the games, Liu Kang defeated Goro. Now, in the comic book, they show that more in depth. So I'm going to go to the Mortal Kombat 2 comic here and show you. Alright, so in the Mortal Kombat 2 comic, you can see Goro fighting against Johnny Cage, Kano, and Sonya, which tells you everything you need to know. Goro didn't actually die at the hands of Liu Kang. Goro continued to live. He may have died in this scene, at least that's what they were hinting at. So if you look at the game's attract mode, it says, facing execution for his failure and the apparent death of Goro, Sung convinces Shao Kahn to grant him a second chance. Alright, so that's the apparent death of Goro. And that's a word that they drove home even more in this interview with Flux Magazine. This interview was done by Dan Electro. So he asks them, will we ever see Goro again, or is he really dead? And John Tobias says, oh, he'll be back in some way. And Ed Boon says, no character has ever been killed off. They might be missing or something. In the second game, we said there was an apparent death of Goro. So we kind of left the door open to bring him back if we want. And I think that was a good idea. In fact, they actually did bring him back for Mortal Kombat Trilogy. So in most versions of Mortal Kombat Trilogy, Goro's playable, along with Kintaro. But I'm going to argue that that's non-canon. So here's the actual instruction manual for MK Trilogy. This is the PC manual. And if you look at Goro's bio here, it's basically just a repeat of the MK1 story, the one that I just read. Word for word, it's exactly the same thing. So if Goro was actually returning here in the game's lore, you'd think they would have written a new story. You can also look down in Kintaro's story. Kintaro, they misspelled here as Kitaro. But anyway, Kintaro's story is also just recycled from his Mortal Kombat 2 story. And in fact, what makes that one even more interesting is that it says that Goro's missing and Kintaro's out for revenge, which makes no sense if Goro's sitting right there side by side with him. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say this one was non-canon. So that brings us to Mortal Kombat 4. Now let me show you what happened in Mortal Kombat 4. They were talking about bringing him back for the arcades. It didn't actually happen, but here's this old GameFan interview I happen to have. And in this interview, GameFan asks, is it possible to create outlandish creatures like Goro, Kintaro, and Motaro convincingly using this hardware? Ed Boon says, oh yeah, that's absolutely possible. Have you got any characters like that in MK4? Not yet. Like I said, we haven't done all the characters yet, but it's possible. So they were talking about the Zeus hardware and how many polygons it can handle at one time, and yes, it could have handled a creature like Goro. They just didn't have time to do it, or for whatever reason, they never ended up doing it. But They did bring back Goro for the home version. So in the PlayStation, the Nintendo 64 version, Goro actually is playable in Mortal Kombat 4. Now I'm going to pull up his bio. I'm also going to argue that just like MK Trilogy, his bio here is not canon, and I'll tell you why in a second. The half-human dragon stood as Shang Tsung's protector in the first tournament. Goro took the Mortal Kombat title from the original Kung Lao, only to have it won from him 9 generations later by Lao's ancestor, Liu Kang. Seeking revenge, the Shokan Prince has returned from the Outworld to crush Liu Kang in Mortal Kombat. But if you actually look at his story in Mortal Kombat 4, they go in a completely different direction. I'd say a 180-degree different direction. Let's look at the Mortal Kombat 4 comic book here. Okay. So in the Mortal Kombat 4 comic book, there's a war that's about to break out between the Centaurs and the Shokan. And you can see Kitana and the Edenian guards caught in the middle. And on the next page, you can see Goro up above, looking down at what's going on. And he chooses just this moment to make his appearance. This is where he decides to make his presence known. He swoops down, and everybody realizes he's not dead. And Goro's death is kind of what led to the war between them. So with Goro back, they kind of all agree that there's really no reason for this war to continue, and they all listen to Goro and decide to have an era of peace. And in fact, in MK Gold, they continue this exact same sequence. They continue this exact same lore for Goro. So he doesn't seem to be driven by revenge, but he's ready to put aside his differences and usher in peace. I'm going to pull that up for you now.
Goro, we are here to offer the Shokan a treaty for truce. The Centaurs have already signed and agreed to all terms. We now await your acceptance.
War has been waged in this realm for too long. We must bring it to an end. I will set aside my differences with the Centaurs as long as they abide by the treaty. I shall sign your agreement.
Goro, this is a great victory for all of us. Kung Lao, we are at a moment of peace. How could you attack now?
I once thought that an allegiance with an enemy was a lost cause, Princess Kitana.
Was that your attempt at an assassination, Earthman?
No, that was a ceremonial strike of revenge for my ancestor that you killed in Mortal Kombat so many years ago.
And do you wish to continue this battle?
No, I wish only to settle the differences between us.
Your ancestor was a great man, and a brave and noble warrior. You should be proud of his accomplishments. If he won, perhaps it would be my own son, seeking to settle differences with him.
All right, so I thought that was a fantastic way to build off of the threads that they'd established in the comic, incorporate them into the canon. And what's really amazing is that in the 3D era, starting in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, they really picked up right from where that left off, mostly in Kitana's story. So if you check this out, this is part of her conquest mode. It says, years ago, Kitana had used her skills of negotiation to bring about a truce between Prince Goro and Kung Lao. And basically, in the whole fight between the Deadly Alliance and Kitana's resistance, Goro was on her side. They show that here. Princess Kitana was at war with the Emperor of Outworld, Shao Kahn. She had joined forces with Prince Goro of the Shokan and was effectively confronting Kano's troops. Okay, and then later on, the combined forces of Kitana and Goro made one last push against Kano's troops, but were unsuccessful in breaching his line of defense. Though Kano's army was fewer in number than the united armies of Edenia and the Shokan, it seemed as though they were being strengthened by some unseen force. Tragically, near the end of that skirmish, Prince Goro was fatally injured. His men brought him back to the encampment where Kitana stayed by his side until he passed. And then in her ending, they continue that, They have the coffin. It's being lowered into molten lava while all these Shokan soldiers are watching. By the way, all the Shokan soldiers look identical to Goro. And they lower the coffin into the molten lava, and that was thought to be the end of it. So basically, Goro became a champion of peace at the end of his life. He made peace with Kung Lao. He ushered in peace with the Centaurs. He fought on the side of the Denian resistance, and everything was going great. Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition for Game Boy Advance only builds on that and expands the lore even more. So let me show you that. The allied forces of Princess Kitana and Prince Goro were locked in mortal combat with Shao Kahn's army when Noob Saibot made his move on an unsuspecting and battle-weary Prince Goro. The two fought savagely, but it was Noob Saibot who gained the upper hand and mortally wounded Goro. Okay, so again, Noob Saibot was in MK Tournament Edition, and they revealed that he was the one who killed Goro. There was nothing really new that contradicted anything that they'd established. I mean, it was some new details, but nothing to contradict it or really change like 180 degrees Goro's story, just filling it in with more background info. And then in Mortal Kombat Deception, at first Goro wasn't in the game, so let me show you what happened with MK Deception. Okay, he was in the Dark Prison background, which is where all the dead characters ended up. So you can see that Goro's model was there. But again, didn't contradict anything. He was dead. He died serving Kitana. You know, Kitana was also kind of in one of the other cells with him. So that was the end of that. And then his bio card for MK Deception was also pretty much consistent with everything. Let me pull that up here. Goro, prince of the half-dragon Shokan race, had for many years served Shao Kahn until his people fell out of favor with the Emperor. An alliance was formed with Kitana's Edenian army, and Goro led the charge against Shao Kahn's forces. So that would have been it, except when Mortal Kombat Deception was released on the Nintendo GameCube, Nintendo wanted some exclusive content, and the exclusive characters they brought back were Goro and Shao Kahn. And in fact, they wrote it into the lore that Goro's serving Shao Kahn. So let me show you their bios. Well, Goro's bio anyway. Kitana's army allied with my Shokan warriors in an attempt to destroy my old master, Shao Kahn. It was rumored that he was weakening and that our victory was inevitable. During the last battle against Kano's militia, however, I was attacked from behind by a shadow warrior, Noob Saibot. I do not know for how long I lay dying on the battlefield, but when I regained consciousness, I was greeted by the last person I expected to see. Shao Kahn found me near death upon the battlefield. Though he was not wearing his armor, I recognized his voice. It was truly him. He used what little power he had left to revive me. He asked me to join him once again and aid in destroying a rising power in Outworld. In return, he would give the Shokan favored status and banish the Centaurs. I accepted his offer. I placed my royal seal on the disfigured corpse of a fallen Shokan warrior, and together we fled into hiding to regain our strength for the coming battle. Okay, so, as you know, Goro is now back on the side of darkness. In MK Armageddon, you can clearly see him fighting with the bad guys. When Taven goes into Shao Kahn's palace, Goro's one of the warriors he fights. And that's sort of where Goro ended up until Armageddon, until the end of time, right? Till the end of this timeline. But I do want to circle back and show you what they did with him in MK Shaolin Monks. So MK Shaolin Monks kind of contradicted MK2 a little bit on this point. I'm going to start by showing you the intro. Okay, so in MK Shaolin Monks, Goro basically came out of the room, kicked everyone's ass, and then Shang Tsung opened up a portal and everybody left. That's not the way I would have played it if I were Shang Tsung. I'm not sure why Goro went along with him on this. I mean, he was totally winning. Nobody was going to defeat him. But hey, that's the way it went. And Goro does show up later in the game for a boss battle. Oh, and I do want to give a shout out to Justin McCollum. Justin was right. Goro's motto was also used in the crypt. You can see a lot of those prison models also in the crypt running around behind coffins in Deception. But let me show you MK Shaolin Monks. There's a boss battle with Goro later on in the game.
It would have been better for you to have died in my lair.
I know that voice. It is Goro. Wasn't Sub-Zero supposed to take care of this?
Fatality.
Yeah, clear reference to the Mortal Kombat movie there at the end, which we'll get into in a bit. But first I wanted to go into the new timeline. So with Mortal Kombat 9, obviously Goro is, the last person that you fight before you face Shang Tsung in the MK1 part of the story mode. He's in the game, but he doesn't have a bio. What's interesting is the cutting room floor does have some stuff on him, though. Let me pull that up. Okay, so I'm going to show you Goro's bio. They have Goro and Kintaro, and I put them together because if you look at their bios, you'll see that Goro is from, like, the more royal race of Shokan, the Draco lineage, and Kintaro is from the Tigrar lineage. And it's funny because they never really confirmed this anywhere else. This is just cutting room floor stuff, but we all sort of take it for granted that this is canon, and it might as well be. So Goro's line of Shokan resembles physically different. Goro always physically looked different from Kintaro, and they're basically saying that they're two different lineages. Goro comes from the Draco race, and Kintaro comes from the Tigrar race. And I thought that was a really cool way to explain why they both look different. And then, of course, in MKX, it says, Prince Goro leads the Shokan, the four-armed race of half-dragons, subjugated ages ago by Shao Kahn. Goro was Mortal Kombat champion 9 tournaments in a row. He was defeated by Liu Kang in the 10th, ending Outworld's hopes of assimilating Earthrealm. The Shokan served the Outworld throne until Shao Kahn's death. They refused to take sides in the resulting civil war and were thus outcast. Few believe, however, that they have seen the last of Goro. Okay, so obviously Goro was a huge part of MKX, in that he was a pre-order character. And yet he was not that huge part of the story in the fact that he wasn't in story mode at all. There was kind of a pattern with NetherRealm at the time that any of the pre-order characters wouldn't show up in the story mode. That's something that they've kind of got away from. But at the time, that's the way it was. So Goro wasn't in the story mode. He was in the MKX comics, though, and I'm going to show you some stuff with that. Okay, so in this one, that's actually Gorbak fighting Kotal Khan. But in this one, you can clearly see that Kotal kills Gorbak. And that's Goro's father. In the next scene, you can see Goro himself fighting against Kotal. And what does Kotal do? He manages to rip off Goro's arms. Not just the top 2, but all 4 of them. So at the end of the MKX comics, Goro is referred to as a cripple, and he shows up at the doorstep of the Red Dragon. He's looking for a way to regrow his arms. He knows about the power of Onaga, and he understands that Onaga can regenerate limbs, and he thinks that's the best chance that he has of being restored to his former glory. And Justin says, kind of ironic because in Armageddon on the main menu, you can see Johnny Cage with Goro in the background. One day I'm going to get into it. I see the GOAT asks, are Johnny Cage and Goro rivals? One day I'm going to show you the whole thing about Goro and Johnny Cage and their rivalry and how it evolved over time. But in the meantime, back to the MKX comics. Yeah, Goro needed to regenerate his limbs. Now in MK11, This is a screenshot that I took a while back of exploring the crypt. You can see Goro's skeleton in his lair, and all 4 arms are intact. So at some point, you have to ask yourself, how did Goro go from having all 4 of his arms ripped off in the comics to now when he died, all 4 arms were there. So what happened in between? I'm going to show you a clip of a podcast. It's called Mortal Podcast, where Sean Kittleson was a guest, and he explains what happened in between.
I never wrote a second season of the Mortal Kombat X comic books, but if I had, my story for them was Onaga. Like, and we kind of hint at the end of the MKX comics that, like, Goro's around, Dagon and the Red Dragon are around, and these guys, they worship Onaga and they want to bring Onaga back, and Goro becomes the vessel in the new timeline.
Right, because at the end of the MKX comics, he goes to the Red Dragon and says
he has no arms. He had Kotal Khan ripped his arms off, cut his arms off. So he's been completely humiliated and debased, and he'll do anything. And he thinks that he's going to get these powers via Onaga, but it turns out he's just going to be the vessel for Onaga.
Wow.
And spoiler alert, Goro would come out of this with his arms intact again. That through various means and whatnot, that we would have a Goro transformation and then exorcise Onaga from Goro, and we'd have our 4-armed Goro back, but we'd also have a fight with Onaga to contend with.
Okay, and to answer your question, somebody in the chat asks, is the half-human, half-dragon thing canon? Yes, it is canon. It was established in the very first game. They've referred to it many times. They did it in MKX, they did it in MK11, they did it in MK Deception. They've been consistent about it. They've never really gotten away from that. There is some stuff about Goro's story that they've gotten away from, and I'm going to talk about that soon. But first, I wanted to talk about Goro in the movies. So Goro was really important. I mean, look, there was that poster and some of the ads in magazines that clearly showed Goro as kind of the star of the show. Even in MK Conquest, which I loved, they had Goro in a cameo. Blink and you'll miss it. So I wanted to show you this. There was a timeline on MortalKombat.com. Not everybody's heard of this, but there was a timeline that showed everything that happened in the New Line take on the Mortal Kombat universe. Everything from MK Conquest to the Mortal Kombat movies, both movies. So if you go to the middle of the timeline, there's this section called Death of a Champion, Kung Lao versus Goro. This is how MK Conquest would have ended. So let me pull that up and I'll show you what it says. For years, having dealt with nightmares of his death at the hands of a 4-armed monster, Kung Lao is about to confront them in the upcoming tournament. Through Raiden's guidance and instruction, Kung Lao is the best he's ever been in mind, body, and spirit. But the Thunder God reminds him that his opponent is the most powerful Mortal Kombat has ever seen. To win back the Emperor's favor, Shang Tsung searches the depths of the universe to find a fighter who will undoubtedly win the next tournament. In the realm of Shokan, he finds Prince Goro, an 8 feet tall, 4-armed warrior born half man and half dragon. The Emperor is very pleased and looks forward to the tournament. When the next Mortal Kombat takes place, it pins the defending champion against the new contender, Goro. The match lasts several days, with either man refusing to quit. Raiden watches as Kung Lao starts to lose his edge and his life force. Any normal man or outworld fighter would surely have been defeated by the warrior monk, but Goro is nothing like anyone from either realm has ever seen. After nearly a week straight of the most intense match in Mortal Kombat history, the great Kung Lao was killed by the Prince of Shokan. So, that sucks. That sucks. Let me get caught up on the chat here. Okay, Kieran Rana says that the database, when Cyber Sub-Zero in MK9, it shows everybody's species. It lists Kitana as human. It lists Boraicho as human. I don't know how canon you should take that. But yeah, they're just using human as a generic term. In fact, we know that Edenians have a much longer lifespan than regular humans, just like everybody does. Every other realm seems to live longer than us. But yeah, they resemble humans. They're humanoid, for sure. So MK The Journey Begins introduced a lot of interesting stuff. They introduced an older brother for Goro, Durak. Now, Durak has never been mentioned in any of the games. You know, there's other non-canon characters who have become canon after the fact. They've become canonized, but not Durak, not Goro's older brother. He was never mentioned at all, but it was cool. And they showed that Goro killed him. So Goro killing his own brother sort of makes him, I guess, it makes him unredeemable. It makes it too unlikely that he would ever usher in an era of peace between himself and Kung Lao, or, between the Centaurs. They also introduced another detail, that Goro was the commander of the Shokan. I mean, not the Shokan, of the Nomads, which was, before the Tarkatans had a name, they were called Nomads. Check this out.
Yes, Goro, Prince of Shokan.
He has 4 arms.
That's what I was trying to tell you.
Goro commands the legions of nomads, fierce subterranean creatures who obey his every command.
Okay, so I thought that was a cool detail. Honestly, with Onaga being the Dragon King and Goro being half dragon, I can't believe that Goro ever would have rebelled against Onaga. I would think that he would want to serve Onaga. I thought, maybe us dragons got to stick together. But that's not how it works. So let's go into how Goro got killed in the movies, because as we know, we've seen what happens in the games. We know that Liu Kang defeated him. We've seen the fight in the Mortal Kombat 2 comic with Johnny, Sonya, and Kano. We've seen MK Shaolin Monks, where Goro just kind of ran off. But MKX sort of confirms that Liu Kang was the one who defeated him. So let me show you in the movies how it works. Okay, in the 1995 film, Johnny Cage killed him. And in fact, there is a bit of irony in that Goro fell to his death, which is the same way that he killed his own brother. So I thought that was kind of fitting. And then in Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge, Scorpion's the one who killed him. In fact, that's kind of dishonorable because they were in the middle of a martial arts tournament and it was a one-on-one fight. Scorpion just kind of comes out of nowhere and kills Goro in one hit, and Liu Kang doesn't defeat him at all. So Scorpion's the one that kills him there. And then in the Mortal Kombat 2021 film, it's Cole Young. So I don't think I need to say any more about that. All right, let me show you some of the lost lore of Goro. And this is what I like. This is a bio from the Mortal Kombat 1 comic book. But you can see it repeated in a lot of places. They actually repeat it in the Mortal Kombat 1 instruction manual. They repeat it in Mortal Kombat the movie on DVD and some of the special features. They repeat it in The Journey Begins. But this is where it first showed up in the Mortal Kombat 1 comic. So as you can see here, his known relatives include his father, King Gorbak, Queen Mai, his mother, and he has 7 wives. Now that is something that they have not gone back to at all since then. They have not touched on the fact that Goro's got 7 wives. That doesn't sound like too bad of a deal for him, really. His occupation, he's the Prince of Khotun, ruler supreme of Shokan's armies. So, okay, it's like Khotun is the 4th astral plane of Shokan, realm of the Outworld, which there's a lot to unpack here. So let's start with that, with Shokan being a realm of the Outworld. I'll tell you my headcanon. In my headcanon, Shokan was a separate realm, right? The half-human dragons lived on their own until eventually Shao Kahn invaded and took over. Now, Gorbak is allowed to remain as king because he's loyal to Shao Kahn, his emperor. And in fact, that is what John Tobias was thinking. I'm going to show you a really cool interview. It's exclusive. This has never been seen before. This is an interview that Uppercut Editions, the makers of the Mortal Kombat Encyclopedia, did by email with John Tobias. I've been authorized to show you this portion of it. All right, so the question that they ask him. The Shokan and Centaurs are called natural enemies in the story. Does this mean they come from the same realm? Are they native to Outworld, or is it another realm that Khan had merged? And John Tobias answers, the Shokan and Centaurs were both native species of an unnamed realm that merged with Outworld during a Mortal Kombat conquest preceding Khan's takeover of Edenia. Outworld is a conglomeration of many realms, the last of which to have been conquered being Edenia. So I thought that was something cool. Basically, my headcanon was confirmed. The only other time I could think of where that happened was in MK Deception. I don't remember if I have this queued up. Yeah, okay, so my brother was talking to me about this. He said that if a creature has 4 arms, they also have to have 4 pecs. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, because your pectoral muscles are what enable you to move your arms. That's what enables you to swing them around and move them in all these different directions. So if you don't have four pecs, you can't have 4 arms. They'd just be sitting there unable to move. And I thought that was crazy. But when they redesigned Goro for the GameCube version of MK Deception, they gave him 4 pecs. And it's interesting. They didn't do that with Kintaro's design. When they redesigned Kintaro for MK Armageddon, they didn't give him 4 pecs. When they redesigned Shiva, they didn't give her 4. You know what? Never mind. Let's just move on. So the other thing I wanted to show you was about astral planes. So John Tobias on his Twitter answered a lot of questions. Let me show you this. This is the one. Okay. So I actually said Goro's MK1 bio has Goro's birthplace as the 4th astral plane of Shokan. That's what Khotan is, the 4th astral plane. And John Tobias says, we left the concept of astral planes behind as we further developed Outworld. This text wasn't carried forward with the exception of a claims copy, and we put 0 thought into the construct of astral planes in our universe. Merging realms was complicated enough. Yeah, I agree. The closest I could think of to astral anything is Quan Chi. I know he does some kind of astral projection from his lair in MK Deadly Alliance. That's what it said. And then his other tweet, I love this one. A very early version of Goro. This was like a preliminary sketch before they ever did any work, before they ever did any modeling for him. You know, Kurt Chiarelli did the original Goro model in the games. But before that, you can see from the back in that first sketch that Goro was going to have a tail. In fact, Tobias here says, I thought I remembered at one point we considered giving Mortal Kombat's Goro a dragon's tail. Found some old sketches circa 1991. So, wow. I mean, Goro with the tail clearly drives the point home about the half-human, half-dragon stuff that we were talking about in the chat earlier. So, okay, I guess the last thing I want to talk about is the new Mortal Kombat. We don't know if Goro's going to be a character in that game. Goro had a huge role to play in the original lore, just considering that he was Outworld's champion for so many years. But we don't know. We don't know. He hasn't been confirmed except as a cameo. So let me put this on a loop. I'm going to show you his MK1 cameo. I'm just going to leave it here for a minute and kind of replay it over and over again because it's one of those things where if you blinked, you could have missed this in the trailer. A lot of people are saying that he looks too short here. I don't know. He's supposed to be 8 feet tall. I think he is about as tall as he's supposed to be. It's hard to say for sure because he's standing so much further behind the background than the other characters. Also his face. His face is a lot more human than it should be. That's, you know, Goro is supposed to look a lot more monstrous. You can kind of see that in every single game in the past up until now. So I think they need to do a bit of work. I realize that in the past, when they show you an early version of the game and they're not done modeling, they do go back and they do make some further enhancements. And I'm hoping that's the case because Goro's face just looks too much like a regular guy. He doesn't look like the man beast that was born on a distant planet. So that's all I got to say about Goro. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment. Let me know if you're excited about the possibility of Goro returning. Let me know what your thoughts are on his cameo appearance or any other thoughts or questions that you have down below. I've been trying to keep up with the chat and all the comments that you guys are asking me. But if I missed anything, go ahead and leave a comment on this video and let me know. Also, go ahead and leave a like on this video. You know, that really helps me out with building this channel. Anytime you leave a like, that really does help. And of course, subscribe to this channel so that you can get notified anytime a new video drops. And yeah, hit the notification bell so that you can get those notifications. It used to just be subscribe and you'll get them. Now, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Anyway, this is Tabmock99. I want to go ahead and leave this video with a joke. So, obviously, Goro does a lot of working out. He's got a lot of muscles. What is Goro's favorite muscle to work out? Give up? The forearm.